Hey everyone, this is Steve Schmid with Simple Pump Company. Today what we're going to do is show you how to install one of our DC drive systems, our linear bearing link drive. We're going to show that from a previously installed system. As you can see here, this is our floor model, but we'll give you the same steps that you would have with yours. This one has the handle fully installed. Once we get to removing the handle, then you can follow along from there if you're just installing the drive system on the initial install for the pump. Let's review the tools that you're going to need. You're going to need a 5/16 inch Allen head. You're going to need a 3/16 Allen, and you're going to need a 9/64 Allen. You will need a couple of crescent wrenches to tighten the pump rods, and you will need a Phillips screwdriver to connect your positive and negative leads from your battery or your power source. Okay. Also, what you'll get with the drive system, and this is just our motorized, our linear bearing link drive, where it's designed to be indoors, so it's not weather resistant. You're going to get the drive unit itself, which will come fully assembled. You're going to get your pump rod extension. You're going to have 4 1/4-20 by 3/4 inch bolts. And several fuses for the warm-up phase, and then of course your instructions. If you've already purchased this and you don't have a set of instructions, you can always get a set of instructions off of our website. Okay, so let's go ahead and get started. So the first thing we're going to do is we're going to remove the handle, and the first thing you'll want to do is you'll want to take the pump rod off. Remember, these are reverse threads. So you're going to go opposite what you would expect to loosen these up. To a point. Okay, so that's loose. Put that down. Grab your 3/16 Allen, and you can loosen up the 4 bolts. So we'll go ahead and finish loosening up all these bolts. Get them off, put that to the side. The last one. All right, so our handle's off. We'll take and we'll put that to the side. So now here's also where you would be starting with the install if you were just installing the drive system and not using the handle. So you would have installed the full pump. And then from here, the next thing you're going to do is you're going to get your pump rod extension, and that should be shipped within this tube to protect it. And we're going to throw this on here. That's left-hand threads. We don't want to forget about that, like we discussed. You're going to use your wrenches here to tighten that up. Okay, so now let's kind of pull this around here so you can get a front view. What you're going to do next is we are going to remove the cover from the drive system. There's a total of 6 bolts. You're going to use that 9/64 Allen to remove these bolts. On this, meant for indoors unit here, you'll have 3 bolts on the front and 3 bolts on the back. Are weather resistant or full solar, all 6 of the bolts will actually be on the front. Side. Take the power off the unit. Put it to the side. Now, typically, for shipping purposes, we'll have 2 tie wraps holding this to this bottom bearings so that it doesn't bang around during shipping. If yours has that on there, then go ahead and cut them off at this point, because the next thing we're going to do is we're actually going to put it on the pump head. So you'll just grab the unit. One thing you'll want to make sure of is that these bearings are loose. So just kind of test them, make sure they're loose. You're going to want to have a little bit of movement as you put these over the top of that pump rod. So now that those are loose, what we're going to do is we're going to grab the unit. We're going to go up high here. The unit's about 28 pounds, so you'll want to make sure that if you can't handle that kind of weight, then go ahead and have a partner, someone to help you out. But it's going to come down, get it lined up with the top. And this unit will just come down right on top of the head there. Maybe a little bit of work you have to do to get that joint between the two rods through this bottom bearing. So now we're stable. We don't have to hold any more weight. The unit is sitting here on the pump head. We're going to need to put our bolts in. So what I'm going to do is just kind of change the view here so you guys can see it from here. Now you're going to use the 3/4 inch long quarter 20 bolts that were supplied with this unit, and we're going to connect it at this point. It's going to have dropped a little bit, so all you have to do is kind of lift it up a little, line up those holes. Just get the first one started. The other ones are easier. Grab your wrench. Now one thing that I'll point out here, just a reason why we really need to have an alignment step for getting this unit installed, is that you can see the size of this hole and you can see the size of this bolt. The hole's a bit bigger than the bolt. You can also see that this unit, the weight of it is not perfectly balanced. All right, you're bolting on one side, the motor's on the other side. So gravity is going to want to weigh this thing down more on this side. And what that's going to do is it's going to make, you can see a little bit of movement here. It's going to make it lean to one side. Well, when everything's bolted up, if we don't adjust for that, you're going to get a lot of friction and drag with this rod going through the bearings. So that's the reason why we need to do an alignment step. First, let's go ahead and get these all the way in. We're going to not tighten them all the way yet. So now we've got them started. To start to adjust for that alignment, what we're going to do is we're going to lift up on this bottom corner. So if you're behind the unit, looking from behind where the motor is visible, you're going to lift on what'll be your left side. If you're in the front of the unit, it'll be on your right side. Either way, it's lift up on the side of the motor to bring it, shift it over. And what you're going to do is you're going to tighten the bolts. And let's go ahead and turn this around. So our next step is actually going to be the front of the unit. So need to make sure that this rod and this clevis are connected together tightly. These are pinch bolts. What you're going to want to do, and if you've got water in the system, this could be fairly heavy, so it may take 1 or 2 people, is you want to bring this unit up here to where you can see this joint between the 2 rods is right in the middle of the clevis. So what I like to do is I like to look right through here and see that joint. Usually, it can be anywhere in between, but if you can get it centered, if possible, that's the best. So once you're in that position, what you're going to do is you're going to tighten these bolts. Now, this being a fairly big piece of metal, of aluminum, you're going to have to go from top to bottom several times, because when you tighten one bolt, right, the other one below it's going to get loose. So I suggest a ratchet like this, because this is very big and strong and it can handle to be crimped down with a lot of force. There's a lot of threads here, so you can get it really tight. And we want it really tight because we want to make sure that this connection here doesn't slip. If this slips, what can happen is it starts to push the rod up and out. When it pushes it up and out, it brings the piston up to the top of the cylinder, and you're going to blow fuses and have all kinds of issues like that. So take the time to get the right tool to get this nice and tight so that it doesn't slip at all. Like I said, it's going to take a couple of times back and forth before they both feel really tight. Okay, so that's tight. We now have the plate mounted to the unit. The next thing we want to do is check our alignment. So the way that we check our alignment is we're actually going to remove this block. Take these 4 bolts out. This last mount, this is going to drop. So the way that we make sure this is aligned perfectly side to side, like we said, because of the weight, is to make sure that the hole right here, the hole in these holes here, line up without being connected. They line up with the hole in the plate where the bolts are actually threaded to. So you just bring it up and line it up. And if you see that you can see the full hole where the bolt goes within, looking straight on within this hole, then you know that you have your alignment correct. And we'll show you some pictures in the video. So we see here the adjustment that I made has it perfectly lined up. So what we're going to do, we're going to go ahead and we're going to put our bolts back on here. So, you know, like I mentioned before putting this on, this one was loose as well. So we want them all to be loose so that the natural position of this rod against the plate is aligned. So we're not going to tighten these yet. They're going to be on there kind of loose because we like to actually let them run loose while we do the final alignment step. But as of right now, we've got a drive system that is installed and almost fully aligned. So what we're going to do in the video today is I'm going to hook this up to the AC/DC converter that we use to test these units before they ship. And what we're going to do is actually run through that alignment step. Now obviously there's no water, it's not in a well, not a big deal for this demonstration. Obviously in the field we want you guys to put this on a pump system that actually is in the water, and if we bring the water up you're not going to be running your seals at the bottom dry. But for today this will be fine, and it'll be able to demonstrate how we actually do our alignment. So the next thing that I'm going to do is I'm going to take my power source and I'm going to connect it to the terminal block. So it will be run through the back here, through that port. Take our screwdriver. So the top side of this terminal block, which is right up here, would be your positive from your power source. The bottom position is for your negative. So that's connected. Our switch is off. I can go ahead and apply the power. Now, obviously it's not running because the switch is off. What you want to do is when you start this up, you don't have the cover on. So as you can see here, this is a pinch point. This is going to be moving up and down. You want to make sure that you keep your hands clear. And we'll show you the trick of how to be safe and make sure you don't pinch yourself while you're doing this final alignment step. So now what we do is we've got the system set up. We've got power to it. So we'll turn it on, and what it's going to do is it's going to run. If your system is primed, it's not going to take very long to get water up, but if it has to prime for the first time, it may take a little while to get water up. So what you can do is you can see that these are loose because they're moving a little bit. Now wait until water's flowing for this next step, because once water's flowing, the rod is under a different load because it's full of water. So once water's flowing, you're going to take your 9/64 wrench. Now I'm going to come over to this side, get as far away from the pinch points as I possibly can. And what I'm going to start is while it's running, away and down, I'm going to slowly start to tighten these. Okay, so I'm going to tighten the two outer ones completely, so nice and tight. Okay, now as you can see, it's kind of finding its center up here. I'm going to do the same thing on the top. Just slowly bring it together. Okay, now tighten them really nice and tight. So now we're at a spot where these bearings are aligned, the plate is aligned, and the rod is aligned. Okay? So what we're going to do, we obviously don't want to get in there and tighten these on the inside with these pinch points. So what we'll do is we'll turn the unit off. Now the unit's off, nothing is running. We can go in. And we can tighten all of these. Okay, once they're all tight, what I like to typically do is go ahead and start it again. Just make sure everything sounds and looks right, which this is running perfect. Sounds like everything's really well aligned. So then at this point, what we would do is we would shut the unit off. The installation of the system is complete, but we do have a step where we want you to break it in. So we're going to run it unrestricted, so maybe a small hose to direct the water if you're in a well house or something. And we're going to run it for several hours. The instructions will give you that guidance. We're obviously not going to run it through that process today because this unit is just on a demo unit. But what you will want to do before running it for that period of time, because you're probably going to step away, you don't know if kids are going to walk up to the unit, but just for that long of a period, you're going to want to protect yourself from those pivot points. So what I would typically do is put a couple of the bolts in, just to make it secure. You're going to pull this back off once it's broken in, and we're going to want you to check a couple of connections to make sure they're still tight. And we'll talk through that in a second here. But you'll want to get, maybe two on the front and one of them back here tight. Then you can go ahead and you can start it up, and you can run through your break-in period. So what we're going to do is we're going to act like magic just happened and we're through the break-in period. We're shutting the unit down. At the end of that break-in period, what I want you to do is feel this rod up here. It should be a little warm, a little bit more than ambient. If it's really hot, then you're going to want to run through that alignment step again, because it means that it's creating a lot of friction with this top guide, and that will need to be adjusted, or else you're going to wear your motor, your brushes out quicker because there's additional load that you don't need on it. So check that, and then if you have to run through that step again, go ahead. Otherwise, what we're going to do after that break-in period is I like to go ahead and pull this cover off. Go ahead and take these bolts and set them aside. Cover. Now what I would do at this point is I would disconnect, not up here necessarily, maybe at the battery, but I would disconnect your power source, you know, just in case you bump into the on button, on switch, and your hand's in there. Obviously you want to avoid any kind of injury. So now that we've gone through the break-in period, and, you know, these bolts have been tightened for the first time in these threads. So what we're going to want to do is just double check that everything's still nice and tight. So we're going to check the clevis. Yep, that's obviously still tight, both top and bottom. We're going to want to check these linear bearings again. Make sure all four are nice and tight. You're going to want to make sure that your bolts back on the back side, the 3/16, are nice and tight as well. And then lastly, I would also suggest making sure that all four of these connections here at the top are tight. Okay, so now the unit is fully installed. From a maintenance perspective, I suggest that the first 3 months of use, come back out and recheck all of these bolts again. Make sure they're all tight, make sure everything's good. And once you've done it, you know, after the first 3 months, I would say every 6 months to a year, depending on how much you use it. If you use it a lot, I'd say every 3 months. But if it's a casual use, once a year, come out, make sure those are all still tight, so that you don't have something loosen up on you and cause a failure. So now that those are all tested, what you're going to want to do is go ahead and put your cover back on. This time, obviously, we're going to want to put all of our bolts. Back side as well. It's a little easier without the wobbly element of the demo unit we have here. All right, so now the LBLD unit is fully installed, and you can need it as you need to, use it as you need to. Go ahead and check the website if you need instructions. Like I said, it's available there. And go ahead and subscribe to our channel if you could. Thank you very much for your time.